evening and welcome to Conversations from Backstage. I'm here with Steve Gwilt and Mark Creter and Maggie. And we are going to talk about some of their experiences with Greater Tuna and Tuna Christmas. Two shows, well, we did Greater Tuna as a backstage show and we did Tuna Christmas as a main stage show. Greater Tuna was done in '95 and 2007, and Tuna Christmas was done also in 2007. So Christmas and Greater Tuna, they're kind of interesting, unique shows in which you play so many different characters in them, and it's just two men playing. I don't look, but like it's probably like 10 characters.
I think we each did 10.
Something
characters.
like that.
Who wrote the scripts? We should announce that. I guess
Joe Sears and
Howard. Somebody Howard, I think.
My goodness! Now that was there's a trivia question that I don't remember.
Yeah.
Well, I'll insert
First
a picture.
one to call in with that answer, you win something. That is the premise, though. Greater Tuna. Tuna is a small town in Texas, and these two actors play virtually all the characters in this town of Tuna, Texas. And so,
and it was a play that, I mean, the two guys that kind of created it, I think it was three guys that worked together, but the two guys did all the acting. I mean, they did it in the mid '80s, and it was a huge success, and they toured it everywhere. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think I've ever met a theater person that didn't at some point or another say, "Oh yeah, those guys came to our town and performed," or they've been to Nashville numerous times.
Sure, yeah.
And it was a real hit, and then of course they spun off some sequels to it.
In fact, a couple of times that we were attempting to do it, we couldn't get the rights to do it because they were doing it in Nashville. And it was also an issue with a Tuna Christmas, but they allowed us to do it anyway because we convinced them that we weren't sharing the same audience.
That's right. That's
Essentially,
right.
yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean they did all, and there's I actually have. They broadcasted. They were one of the first shows that was recorded and shown on HBO, a real early HBO in the '80s. Uh-huh. And I found a copy of it. I actually have a copy of it on VHS that I found at McKay's or something. It was so funny to think they really could have, I guess they weren't thinking like, boy, we're really going to blow it when it comes to making money if we show this at HBO. But it is funny to see those guys, the guys who originated all those roles. And but it was a fun show.
It's one of the most fun shows.
We didn't come up with the idea to do it. Did Rick ask us to do it, or?
I think we kicked it around and maybe suggested that it would be a good project for us. Yeah, I think so.
I couldn't remember exactly how we got there, but it was, of course, I was so grateful, and I mean, I had so much fun working on that with you. I mean,
it was.
We barely made it through rehearsals some nights. We were laughing so much, just creating these characters, and of course, it was so nice to find that people actually would pay money to see us in dresses.
Well, there you
Who
go.
knew?
Half our costumes were dresses, yes. With all the accoutrement that goes into a dress, if you receive my meaning.
Yes.
And I think was it Susie Klein who made the
Susie Klein did a bunch of the costumes.
Because I needed like a giant muumuu and rather large breasts and stuff that could be put on and taken off very quickly. And
well, that was part of the fun, was the way the costumes were built and designed with Velcro seams so you could just rip it off, and we would get dressed in layers too. You would look at the scenes as they progressed, and you would put on layers of costumes. So many times it was just a matter of taking off what you had, so the next scene was already on. And there was some artistry to even creating that whole scheme, that costume scheme.
Oh, absolutely. And we had a number of good costumers backstage who really, I mean,
and our dressers, we each had dressers that did.
Yeah, because the show rises and falls with your ability to step off stage and step right back on in a completely different costume, different character.
Yeah. That's really hard too. I mean, because I've been in sort of that same situation on the backside of it with stage managing Complete Works, and where you're trying to like get everybody changed out and go back out there and like give them all their props and all that kind of stuff. So that's, I mean, the people that were doing that for you guys, props to them, because that is a hard
And we did
job
Greater
to do.
Tuna before we did Complete Works.
Yes, we did.
So
that
we
is
had
correct.
at least had a little bit of experience getting in and out of.
Yeah.
That show was so much fun though, and people really did eat it up.
Yeah.
I mean, they just loved watching our craziness.
Yeah.
The characters, I think, are so relatable. Even though the characters are, kind of your generic, stereotypical characters in each genre, kind of, but they're really relatable because I think everybody thinks that reminds me of somebody that I know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially, I mean, it's like two small towns, you
And
got
a
Crooksville
storyline and everything is easy to follow, and all kinds of
And it was fun too. Like
fun things
the
happen.
two guys at the beginning, Arlo and
Arlo.
you were Arlo.
Yes.
No, I was-
Oh, man.
I know. It's so
I should have looked
tough.
at this stuff.
Tough
yeah.
getting old.
or-
I was trying to find. I actually have a copy of a newspaper article from that first year that we did it with pictures that I think my mom had saved that I found in her in her one of her scrapbooks. But anyway, what I was going to say was their friendship is so fun and was kind of similar to our friendship working on the show, in that we're working on this thing together. We're very supporting each other. And then to take those two characters and expand into the whole world of, it's a brilliantly written show.
And the show is framed through these two radio personalities.
Yeah.
They're the ones that kind of open up the show, and it's just them talking about the various things happening around town and what's going on, and that kind of sets it up for some of the activity that happens later.
Right.
Yeah.
And you hear about some of these characters before you actually see them through like news reports and stuff like that. And it's a really clever show. I mean, I understand why it's had such a long life. Of course, they've done it up in Cumberland County Playhouse numerous times over the years,
And it's not a difficult show to mount in terms of settings and that sort of thing, but it is difficult to mount because you do have to have a couple of good people who can keep themselves on track with all the various characters. You have to have good costumers, you have to have good dressers, and the show depends on the flow, I think, and the execution, just keeping it rolling.
the first time we did it, we directed ourselves.
I think we directed ourselves.
Because I know Chad directed us for the Christmas show, which was so nice to have someone going, no, do that, or do that.
Yeah.
But we just took that on as
we did it ourselves because Lynn came in and was a third eye for us, and actually came up, presented to us some really good ideas and helpful things to use. As she just sat and watched it a couple of times.
Didn't we? I feel like Scott maybe came in.
I think that's entirely possible.
Scott Strawn, I think, or
we
Eric,
had a couple of third eyes that came in
because we felt like there was funny stuff, but it was so nice to have somebody who would sit out and go, that really worked, or you got to tighten that scene up a little bit.
And we know that we're funny, so it helps to have somebody out there go,
funny.
no, that was stupid.
You think you're funny.
You think that's funny, but So trying to go back to, you're saying that it either falls or is successful on the flow of things. The show is kind of about like what it's like to be up there, or, backstage or whatever. How do you, even start to learn these lines of all these different characters?
I think it's just probably scene by scene.
It was pretty sequential.
Tackle each
the play,
scene
and then you'd find, like, for me it was finding. I'll give you an example. Playing Bertha, she was kind of the main woman that I
Bertha
played.
Buemiller.
Bertha Buemiller. Once I found her voice, which I actually based on my mother-in-law's voice. My dear mother-in-law has the sweetest Southern accent in the whole world, and I wanted Bertha to have that. And I don't know that I consciously did, but at some point I realized, okay, that's where that voice is kind of coming in. And then of course the old lady Pearl. Just once you found the voice, then the physicality, for me anyway, the physicality kind of caught up with the voice.
Yeah, okay.
And then once we added costumes and stuff, that affected
That
things
helped you
too. How you're
switch
going to move and
back.
the wigs and all of those things really did. It was a real interesting acting exercise in building a character. Starting with voice, physicality, and then beginning to add stuff to it.
You add some details to and some of the characters actually endeared themselves, I think, to the audience. The one I think about is the animal lover, Petey Fisk, which those are the comments that I got after the show, is I absolutely love Petey Fisk because he's a really likable person and he loves animals. But just to, for
and
instance,
also the way you played him, your face would just get so...
And I created,
and
for some reason, I just determined to make him a little bit softer, more likable, and more gentle. I put a lisp on him, too.
That's right.
So he became Petey Fisk. No offense to anyone with a speech impediment by any means, but I think that actually became kind of an endearing quality of that character, too.
Very vulnerable.
He was so
very
gentle
sweet.
and had that lisp, and I had glasses with tape. I had taped up glasses and everything too. Yeah.
That's really cool because we haven't really went into that on the show. Is these choices that we make as we're doing rehearsals, developing
discovery, kind of.
And just things that you've heard. And I've lived, even though I'm originally from the North, I've lived in the South most of my life. So yeah, there are absolutely people that I thought of. That I thought, oh yeah, this person is a little, so and so is like this character, or has this, this kind of. It was fun playing with all the Southern accents too.
Sure,
that was just so much fun.
Sure.
Yeah, there's so many different ones in Southern accents. People just do that one kind of yokel accent that for everything, but there's so many different variations to play with that I bet that was.
And I think for an actor, it's helpful to find something to kind of attach to, whether it's basing an accent on somebody or creating some kind of a quirky tick or something based on somebody that But I think that helps the development of that character because it gives you something more tangible.
Well, and I think about too, in the Christmas Tuna, the Joe Bob, the big. Kind of effeminate
director, play director. Yeah.
Finding this costume I think I found it. I don't remember if I found it.
It was at some LeMay shop. That sold nothing but LeMay.
But it was this black tracksuit that had these little danglies on it, and it was like everything came together.
The
with
beret
that
set it off.
And the beret, and
you had did you have capris or culottes or something like that on?
It was just ridiculous. It was ridiculous. That character was. His character is referred to in Greater Tuna, but then he actually appears in
Tuna Christmas.
Tuna Christmas, and he was so much fun to play him.
Yeah.
And I have to tell the story, but one of the most fun moments I ever had on stage that was not planned was when you, as Joe Bob, we were the scene took place in a diner.
Yep.
And I was the waitress in this diner. And Joe Bob came in
With your
and you went
saucy
over.
red wig on.
Yes, that wig. And you went to sit in a chair, and that chair just collapsed. Not planned at all. But it just happened. I turned my back to the audience because I was laughing so hard, and the audience wouldn't quit laughing. They would not allow us to carry on with our routine.
And I had been waiting. I had been waiting to crack Steve up in a show for years. We were in a production of Taming of the Shrew at the Wesley, and he busted me up hard one night. And I thought, someday, it may take me years, but someday I'm going to make Steve laugh on stage. And it happened to be that moment. And then, of course, I ad-libbed some bit about
I can tell you exactly what the line was. Do we need to edit this? If so,
yeah.
you will have the time.
Yeah.
But what you said is, after the audience finally died down, we're waiting to see what was going to happen next. Your line was, well.
That's what it was. And the look on your face as just all the color went away and you just spun away. I was so proud. I was rarely proud.
I was proud of you for saying
Killed the audience, took the audience out. It was just great.
I love those little surprise moments when some mistake has happened, but then your brain clicks on something that just makes it even better.
Yeah. And there's no way you could ever duplicate that again. Even if you tried, you just simply couldn't do it.
No, and I will say the next night of the show, I found myself sitting very gently in the new chair that was provided, but my brain was thinking about the night before when it just was out. He is out.
Everyone that works on the show holds their breath just that second.
So we were talking earlier about like getting dressed and all that stuff backstage and how crazy that was. One of the things that I don't think people realize is that you in a show like this, you go backstage and like people just like take clothes off of you and throw clothes on you and give you these props, and then you go back out and it's just this hectic situation. But you have to go out and be, calm, collected, and ready to do that character. Even though it's just been this flurry of activity in 10 seconds, then you just have to step right out and be that character.
Yeah, step right into the scene.
Yeah.
And
Again, a great exercise for actors.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just making sure, and you have that very quick, 10 seconds to make sure, okay, my glasses are on, my wig is straight, I've got this where it needs to be, boom, step into the scene.
And we did have cheat sheets back, which told us which scene was coming up, at least.
Yeah.
So because, honestly, I don't think I could remember because it is that flurry of activity when you're going, you depend on people to say, okay, now you're so-and-so.
And you're doing this.
Here you go.
Yeah. Because that's what I'm saying. Is how do you get those tricks or keep your mindset after that? I've never, and I hope to before I quit my theater career, to do something like that because it's so much fun. But like, is it like you said, you're using cheat sheets, and is it just like cues, like I'm in this costume and now I'm doing this, and that's how you do that, or?
Oh yeah, I think so. The costume helps greatly. It helps
Yeah.
you step into the character, and plus, just the fact that this is the activity that in which you are engaged gives you the energy to keep plowing through. Yeah,
a ton
'cause
of
it's so much
rehersal,
fun.
and so
Yeah.
we had definitely. We even got to the point where we would go off stage, and I remember pantomiming, putting things on, even before we had everything, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to put a shirt.
You wanted to
and
get
then
your
I have a
timing
wig, and I
down,
have
you wanted to-
glasses,
yeah.
And by the time we got into it, there was a certain muscle memory involved.
And
certainly,
you just step out and
getting
you
on
knew what you
stage.
do, yeah. Because I was always afraid, like if I did something like that, I would just step out and like start into the wrong line.
Well, that is and not that hasn't happened.
Well, right,
before, I'm sure, but some of the in getting in and out of the costumes, we each wore pantyhose because it helped. It helps them slide
and I think that was
on
a
and
suggestion
out.
in the script.
Yeah,
that it
it
will
might
help
have
the
been.
costumes slide on and off easier.
So you
And
get that
also-
base layer.
Yeah.
And I had for one of my characters, I had some big butt pads to give me a bigger butt.
Yeah.
And everything. And those were done with pantyhose as
Yes,
well.
yes.
Oh, that's
Oh,
You had-
Charlene. That was
Charlene had
Charlene.
quite a rear end on her.
Yeah.
Breaking for me, really, once we really got into it, to discover that no matter what, Steve was always going to be a much prettier woman than me. I would sit on stage sometimes just looking at him, just so jealous, because he looks so pretty over there.
I would look in the mirror too with my mascara.
Oh.
Not a fan of wearing makeup, I have to say. So I'm just kidding. But I always, in my theatrical endeavors, if I could get by without having to do a lot of makeup, I
Well,
would.
and with this play, there was no time to really do much for the women.
And plus, you were so many different people that you didn't want to put anything
so
too permanent.
you pretty
on.
much had things like the wigs, glasses, stuff
Jewelry
like that,
maybe, or
jewelry maybe, yeah. But it was, and some of that was sewed into the costumes.
Oh, yeah.
It was really something. I mean, it was a great experience. And one of my absolute, I when people ask me what's my favorite thing I've done on stage, Tuna and Complete Works are the two things I always come back to, because just for pure energy, and of course the audience ate up Greater Tuna, and I know that's certainly the best reason why that show has had such longevity, because it's just so funny, and they just get into the life of these characters, and anyone I've talked to who've been on the show, Jeff Keane played your role with another actor when he was out in California. A number of times they did that. It was like, he'd say that would be a show every couple of years. People go, we haven't done that Greater Tuna in a while. I was introduced to it when I was in graduate school. Two of the senior grad actors wanted that to be their final kind of their final thing at UNC Greensboro.
That's a great project.
They you know, and they'd worked together before, so they had a real chemistry and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just such a fun
And
show.
part of the attraction, I think, when the audience comes to see it, is just seeing how these two guys are going to do this.
Yeah.
How can two people do this? And then if it works well at the end, they just go, "That's how they do it." Wow,
I
that
just
was
love
fun.
it. Yeah. It's funny you say that those are the things you come back to, because anytime I've talked to anybody that's done those two shows, either Greater Tuna or Complete Works, it's almost always at least in their top 5.
Oh.
You know, just because I guess because the energy of it's so much fun to do.
So much fun, and you know, those are Complete Works even more, because Complete Works, you are constantly engaging with the audience.
Yeah.
Greater Tuna still has a certain, you know, inner life of the show that the audience is watching and responding to.
There's a little bit more of a fourth wall.
You know,
And and there are more scenes set up in Greater Tuna. You know,
Right.
there are scenes that are set up, and you're watching the progression of these scenes. Whereas with the other Shakespeare, it's more like standalone scenes. There's not
it
a,
is.
real
it's
thematic
almost
thread.
like a sketch, whereas
more like
Greater
sketch,
Tuna.
yeah.
Although Tuna is written, some of the neat ones, like I always loved your monologue with the judges at the coffin. You know, what was that kid's name? You know, who turns out to be the murderer. Spoiler alert. But it was such a great monologue. But it's also one that is very much delivered to the audience, even though for the actor, you're talking to the coffin, the dead judge.
Oh, okay.
And it's a real, like, those were nights where, first off, it was a stretch where I actually got to take a breath, because it was just Steve out there. But it was so fun to listen to the audience when they would realize what his character was saying and how, you know, Steve was playing the character. Just this kind of moment where you hear the audience go, ooh. It was really neat.
That's awesome.
And I think each of us had a time. I remember, I know when I did The Preacher, that was one of the times when you didn't have to be on stage for the Preacher moment. But most of the time we were either coming and going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just enough time to let that character off stage change and come back in, and that's how the scenes kind of work themselves around. Yeah.
And it really is best with two. I saw a production done where the director, and I understood because he did it in a college setting, and he put eight or nine actors in the show.
Sure.
And it was still funny, but part of the charm of that show is to see these two maniacs.
It's meant to be performed by two.
It just doesn't work quite as well with a larger cast.
I'm sure he was trying to give people opportunities. You know,
Exactly what it
so
was.
it's understandable, but yeah.
Large group of people. You want
And
to
it was
give
still
everybody.
funny, but the charm of seeing two actors and knowing that there's people backstage who are throwing things on and taking things off is so much fun.
Well, I mean, that like lets them in on that magic of theater thing, you know. Whereas when you have all those people, you don't have the changes and you don't see that. There's not that kind of surprise of coming back out as another character.
Surprises. Talking about surprises, and we sound like one big happy family working together to get this project all done. But I'll tell you what, actors and people working backstage can be kind of mean to each other once in a while.
It does happen.
For instance, as I was about to go out, I don't remember which character, as I was about to go out, they got all my clothes put on me. I was about to go out and somebody grabbed me by the neck, and I thought, oh, I must have forgot something. But what they were doing was they were pulling my neck so they could dump a bunch of ice down my back. As I'm walking out on the stage.
No!
Okay, thanks, people.
What had you done to them before that?
That doesn't matter. We're not talking about that.
Yeah, there were
things like that,
There were some playful scamps
People
backstage.
attempt to throw your fellow actors and stage hands and so forth. But
And like
it was
with
part of
Complete
the fun.
Works, of course, we went during the curtain call. We always had the backstage. The dressers come out and had their own curtain call.
Oh, that's
because
awesome.
We couldn't have done it without
absolutely.
just the craziness of that.
Well, I videotaped one of the years that we did it. I set up cameras backstage and videotaped, because you can't videotape a performance contractually and all that, but we could videotape what was happening backstage, the costume changes and so forth. So I did. I don't know whatever happened to that.
I was gonna say, push things out. did you have a favorite character that you played in those shows, or were they all just
Wow,
pretty?
Mark, what about you?
Yeah.
I loved Bertha. She was
Bertha was-
sweet,
yeah.
and and of course, it was one of my all-time favorite moments. Is at the end of the Tuna Christmas, Steve's character and my character Bertha and Arlo, I guess, have fallen in love, and we're dancing together. And I'm pulling Steve into my voluminous breast, and I think I whispered in your ear, "Theater is just the weirdest thing." Slow dancing on stage, the lights are turning.
And yeah, we had the disco
pulling
ball.
Steve
Yeah.
into my massive bosom. And it'll be one of my all-time favorite moments
And I think-
ever in life.
I think as my head was in your bosom, I think I just kind of let my arms go limp.
Yeah, you did.
That's very cool.
But,
you, Steve,
yeah.
do you have a favorite character, or is it just?
I think maybe Petey Fisk, just because the audience liked him so
Yeah.
much. I don't think initially that he was the character that I really liked, but I think he was so fun and so endearing, and the audience just went, every time he'd come on. I got so much.
That's cool.
Yeah, so much response about that character.
And he was
I
a
think
completely different, because he's so sweet.
He was so
whereas-
different than Stanley.
Yeah,
Stanley was.
some of the
yeah.
characters are very caustic. Your Vera was, very tight and caustic, and just to play this really sweetheart, gentle,
Yeah.
gentle-natured character was kind of neat in that play.
Yeah, I didn't get to see Greater Tuna, but I saw Tuna Christmas, and I believe Joe Bob was probably my the director.
In
love Joe Bob.
Tuna Christmas, I couldn't have loved playing him more because
Yeah.
he was just so ridiculous and broad and just too much fun.
Yeah. All right, well, cool. Well, thanks, guys. This is a really interesting look at just like backstage work and how you do these characters and stuff. So thanks for coming out. and-
Well, thanks for allowing us to reminisce about that
Yeah,
show.
yeah,
Again, one of
absolutely.
my favorite productions ever.
Yeah.
Mine too.
Yeah, for
Mine
sure.
too.
Yep.
Just such a great experience.
Great experience.
Yeah.
Buddy.
Well done, old sport.
Yeah, you too.
Well, hopefully we'll be back to it soon, and maybe we'll do something like that. So, all right.
With younger, thinner people.
You guys
More
can
agile. Yeah.
Yeah.
you guys can sit down and watch and see how it's going.